Okay, Team Impact, good morning, excuse me, good afternoon. It is Thursday, March 20th. I guess it's the first day of March Madness if you're into basketball. You can enjoy watching some of that. We are moving on today. I returned the quiz today, reviewed area composite figures, one of our box plots. Now we're moving on to frequency tables. There's frequency tables here. So we're going to go ahead and get set up, and then the frequency table will then dovetail right into a histogram. A histogram is just blocks of data. It's like a bar graph, but it's chunks of data going across the bottom. So let's go ahead and get started with this and see what we can get into here. The first thing we do when we talk about a frequency table is we got to get organized here. So we're looking for scores here between 51 and 60, all right? And then 61 and 70 and so on. And you can see that these are our chunks of data. So what I'm going to do is use tallies, or what I call ticks. So here's an 81, it goes here. A 55, it's going to go here, right? 100, it's going to go there. I'm just tallying up, right? 94 will go right here. 61 will go right here. So each tick includes one of those numbers, right? 80 will go here, 71 to 80. 77 will also go there. 74 will also go there. 92 will also go right here, and 95, right? Now, since I'm to the point where I have 4 tallies, remember on a tally, the 5th one is a slash. So let's continue on. 52 is there. 86 is right here. 90 would be right here. 78 would be right here. 81 is right there. 100, here we are, 100. So that's a block of 5, right? 65 is right there. 81 is right here. That's a slash. 70 will be right here. And 94 will be right here. Okay, so all I've done is got organized. I put my data into chunks, right? So now what I'm going to do is write the frequency. And the frequency is simply just counting the ticks. So I have a 2 here. I have a 3 here. I have 4 ticks. There's a block of 5, and there are 6 there. Okay? So that is all a frequency table is, right? Taking data, organizing it into tallies, and writing the numbers down. Right? Let's try that again. Okay? And let's go. I have a 7, a 10, and a 1. Here's a 7. Here's a 10. And here's a 1. I have a 3, an 8, and a 17. Here's a 3. Here's an 8. And here's a 17. I have a 12, a 2, and a 10. Okay, here's a 12. Here's a 2. And here's a 10. I have a 9, a 15, and a 13. I have a 9, 15, 13. You see what I'm doing? I'm just tallying up, essentially. 9, 12, and 8. Here's a 9. Here's a 12. And here's an 8. 4, 20, and 7. Here's a 4. Here's a 20. And here's a 7. 14, 2, and 10. Here's a 14. Here's a 2. And here's a 10. You see what I'm doing? So now I can count my blocks of 5. Let me finish up. A 3, a 17, and a 6. Here's a 3. Here's a 17. And here's a 6. A 2 and a 15. Here's a 2. And here's a 15. Okay? So we've organized our data. Okay, now we're going to move on and do our frequencies. Here I have 7, 6, here's 5, here's 10, here's 6, and here's 3. Okay? So again, just good practice making a frequency table. Now, what we're going to do with this frequency table is we're going to go ahead and make a histogram. And all as a histogram is, down here next, is taking this data and organizing it. And on a histogram, the difference is there are chunks of data across the x-axis. That is it, right? So when I look at 1 to 5, I see the number 7. So they've got it all set up for me. They've titled it. They've labeled the Y and the X-axis. This is pretty easy here. So I'm going to take it up to 7 right there, and I'm going to fill it in. Okay, and I'm going to change colors so you can see it. Let me erase that line. I want a little high right there, right? So the next one is 6 to 10, and that's going to go up to 10, right? And it's going to come down there, and we're going to do that. And I'll switch back to pencil, just so you can differentiate between. 11 to 15 is 6, so I come to 6, I make my line, I bring it down, and there it is. And then finally, 16 to 20 is 3. Well, here's 2. I'm going to go 1 above that, make my line, and I'll change that back to red for you, and there it is. Okay? And that is your histogram. This is your frequency table. These are tallies, right? No problem so far. Let's move on. Reading, how many runners are there? All right, how many total runners are there with this? So to figure out the total runners, I have to add up my frequencies off of this. So here's 7 and 10 is 17, and 3 is 20, and 6 is 26, right? How many runners ran a maximum of 15 laps? A maximum of 15. So they didn't run more than 15 laps. Well, this is your completed laps. This is the number of laps. They ran a max. So here, 1 to 5, right? And then numbers 6 to 10, 11 through 15, all right? So when we look at this, how many runners ran a maximum of 15 laps, we're going to have to do some adding here, right? So we're going to have to add these 3, all right, columns, all right? So these folks ran, so I'm going to add 7, and 10 is 17, and 6 is 23. So 23 runners ran a maximum of 17 laps. Or excuse me, a maximum of 15 laps, I apologize. How many runners ran at least 6 laps? At least 6. The number of laps. At least 6 laps. Well, okay, let's take a peek at this thing here. So, how many ran at least 6 laps? Well, if they number of laps, if they ran at least that many laps. Okay, sorry, I had to run to the restroom there. So how many ran at least 6 laps? So we're going to add this column, which is 10, because here's 6. These didn't run 6. These ran 11. So I need to add these three bars up. And when I add these 3 bars up, I end up with 19. 10 plus 6 plus 3 is 19. Which interval contains the least amount of runners? The least is 16 to 20. It's the smallest bar. Okay? So, looking at that, we can't get specific data from a histogram, but we can see how things change over time. Let's flip it over and let's roll some more. All right. So we have a histogram there. They've already done it for us. And we're going to answer some questions. How many students weighed between 7 and 7.9 pounds? So when I look at that, I come up and I see 9 students. That bar goes up to 9 on my y-axis. How many students weigh less than 8 pounds? Less than 8. So here's 8, so I need to add this column, and this column together. So here's 9, and 3 is 12, and 1 is 13. 13 students. Okay? Which interval contained the most students? Well, that's easy, right? 7 to 7.9 pounds. Okay? Okay. Well, let's keep rolling. Number 5. Okay? The typing speeds of students in a keyboarding class is given. So, how many students can type 36 to 40? All right, 3. 41 to 45? 9, and so on down the line. What percent of the students type between 41 and 45 students? Okay, so we're looking for the percent. So we're going to set up a proportion here. Okay, What percent? So I'm looking for the percent, so I put x over 100. Remember, all percents are over 100. Okay? Now, 41 to 45. All right? So 41 to 45 is 9. See how it comes over to 9? Now, what goes on the bottom? Well, what goes on the bottom is the total amount of students. So I need to add all of these bars up to get my whole. So 1 plus 2 plus 5 plus 9 plus 3. When I add those all up, I get 20. Okay? Now we're just going to go ahead and solve our proportion. Okay, so let's go ahead. 9 times 100 is 900, divided by 20 is 45. So x is 45 out of 100, or 45%. Okay? Very good. Very good. So going back to ratios and proportions, let's go with number 6. The histogram below shows the test scores on a science test on a group of students. What percent of the students scored between 91 and 100? We're going to do the same thing. We're looking for the percent. So when we're looking for the percent, all right, I always put x over 100 equals, all right? So 91 to 100, that's what we're looking for. If I look up here, has 24 out of the total amount. So if I go through and add these up, 24 plus 30 plus 19 plus 12 plus 6, all right, and plus 3. If I add those all up, I get 96. Okay, 96. So let's go ahead and solve it. Okay. All right, let's go. So 24 times 100 is 2400. Divided by 96 is 25. So x is 25, or out of 100, which is 25%. Okay? All right, number 7. We're rolling. Got a good pace. The histogram below shows the number of raffle tickets sold by a group of students. What percent of the students sold at most 15 tickets? All right, at most. We're looking for the percent. I always start with x over 100. Now, we need to figure out this other side, right? At most 15 tickets. So I need to add those 3 up, okay? So I'm looking to add those 3 up. So this looks to be, the interval looks here to be 2. So this looks to be 14 plus 20, which is 34, plus 2, which is 36. So it's 36 out of the total amount, which is 36 plus 6 is 42. This is 6. And 42 plus 8 is 50. Okay, is 50. So we have a lot of interpretation here. So let's go ahead and multiply. 36 times 100 is 3,600. And 3,600 divided by 50 is 72, which x is 72 out of 100, which is 72%. What percent of the students sold at most 15 tickets? 72%. Okay? All right, we're rolling on. We got more. Now we're going to put the whole thing together here. Okay? Okay. So, we need to construct a frequency table, right? And I have numbers from 6 to the highest number of 49, 48, 40, 48. So I need to figure out my interval, and this is kind of the hardest part, right? So my interval here is going to be really 10 places, but we're going to call it 0 to 9. So I'm going to start out with 0 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 through 29, 30 through 39, and 40 through 49. And the reason I picked 10 is because my biggest number here was 48. So I didn't need to get above 48. So now I'm going to go ahead and start tallying up and make a frequency table. Okay? So I have a 24. So I'm going to do this right over here. 24, bang. Right, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this so I can kind of stay organized here. Okay? Okay. I have a 7. I have a 16 and a 5. 16 and a 5. Okay? I have a 20 and an 18. Here's a 20. Here's an 18. Just take your time and get organized. I have a 24 and 32. 48 and 35. You getting the idea? Go ahead and pause the video and see if your tallies equal mine. Okay? 12 and 17. 8 and 26. 20 and 34. 27 and 40. 12 and 23, 5 and 36, 42 and 14, 10 and 21, 28 and 6, 41 and 23. And there you have it. So all we did was just put ticks where they belonged. Okay. So my frequency is just counting those up. Here's a 5. Here's a 7. Here's a 10. Here's a 4. And here's a 4. Now, we're going to go ahead and make a frequency table, right? So the data below represents the length of time in minutes for 30 random calls to a customer service center. Okay, so the length and time, these are in minutes. So across the bottom, I'm going to put minutes. Okay, and then I'm going to put my intervals. So I'm going to write 0 to 9, right? I'm going to kind of put a tick there, so just to keep me organized. 10 to 19. 20 through 29, 30 through 39, and 40 through 40. Let me erase that. 49. Now, one thing about a histogram is the bars should be equal width, right? This bar is a little off, so I'm going to extend this out just a little bit so that we have equal width bars, right? And then on the vertical axis, we need to see how far we need to get up. The biggest frequency I have here is 10. So if I count by ones, I should be able to get up there. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So I'm just making my frequency table. Why did I count by ones on this interval? Because I knew that there were 10 lines, and the biggest number was 10. So the first one, 5, goes up to 5. And here it is. And there we are. 10 to 19 is 7. So I go up to 7, over. And again, I'm trying to make these bars the same width. The next one is 10, so I have to go clear up, over, and down. The next one's 30 to 39. That goes up to 4. And then the last one's 40 to 49. It's also 4. Right? So I cheated a little bit out here and extended it just so my bars were the same width. Right? And that is how you make a histogram. Okay? Okay. So, all right, we're going to pause there. All right, we've made our histogram. All right, we're in good shape here. I'm not going to do numbers 9 or 10 out of the lesson because it's too much, and we're going to run out of time anyway. And I think I'm going to utilize this video with all the classes so I can be consistent with my message. But if we flip it over, let's take a look at the homework. So homework 6, histograms. You have to do numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then flip it over 5, 6, and we are not doing number 7 because it's a stem and leaf graph. We're Xing that out. Okay? All right, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you when I see you.